welcome into the space, Stefanos. Been a pillar facilitator for us here at Sacred Sons from day one, holding down the relational pillar, which we all know is a huge pillar in all of our lives. It's a real honor and a blessing to have him here in this space with us, not only taking the time to be here once again at the in-person Convergence, but to be in the portal, within the portal, and on here with you all, bringing his medicine through. So I want everybody on this call to take your hands, put them up on the screen like we do, show Stefanos the love he much deserves, and let's get into it, my brother.
Oh man, thank you. Man, welcome. So I'm assuming some of you, if not most of you, have been watching some of the sessions that were filmed. Let me get a, let me just do something here. One moment. Give me a number one if you've seen the 2-hour workshop, Man and Sex, that was filmed and then brought forward to you yesterday. Be number one in the chat box. We'll get an idea of who's watched that, who hasn't. Okay. It has uploaded, yeah. Okay, no problem if it hasn't. So, Man and Sex. Let me tell you what today's going to be about. You're going to be able to watch that workshop. So I'm not going to repeat a lot of the information that I presented there. What that does mean is, though, that we get to be really interactive here. We get to make this some small group coaching. We get to go a little bit deeper into what's rising for you, because here it is. Whatever's rising for you, whatever's present for you, whatever pain you're going through, confusion, doubt, whatever issues you're facing right now, more than likely, either the man that's next to you on this call is either going through a very similar thing, the same thing, or has been through that. And reflection on that's going to be very useful. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be calling men up. I'm going to be calling you up. I'm going to be asking you to raise your virtual hand. Not just yet. I'm going to be asking you to raise your virtual hand. We're going to get into some Q&A. And if you don't feel comfortable raising your virtual hand and I'll bring you on, that's cool. We may put the questions in the chat box. But because most of you haven't seen what this topic was about, this 2-hour workshop, 2.5-hour workshop, 3-hour workshop. Yesterday was 3 hours. I don't think that was the one that was filmed, though. The one that was filmed is about 2.5 hours. Let me explain to you a little bit about man and sex. When we think about man and sex, we think about, well, it's me as a man and it's sex. It's not how you have sex. It's not about your technique. It's not about it's not about your lovemaking skills. It's about how you relate to your sexuality, how you project your sexual energy forward into the world, how you hide from the world, maybe shame from the world, how you perceive yourself to be in the world, your level of self-worth, your value, the value that you place on yourself. It is very much expressed through our sexuality, our personality. Our sexuality is in part our personality. And so, as you'll see, and I do want to touch on this because it's important, the central focus of the workshop over this last weekend has been around the word manhood. Manhood. Let's do something. Word association. When I say the word manhood, and you'll experience this in the lecture, but let's do this here. When I say the word manhood, I want you to type in the chat box, what are words or sentences or thoughts or phrases that come to mind? Manhood. Go. Word association. Strong, vulnerability, powerful, empath, sacred, a pillar, strength, resilient, vulnerability, empowered, virile, dick, caretaker, brave, integrity, sovereign, strong, wise, responsibility, ownership, protector, center, core, violator, holding, providing, warrior, assertive, king. Big words: provider, passion, confusion, decisive, father, regulated, patriarch, protector, thoughtful. None of these words are wrong. Structure, They all represent and embody the essence of manhood. Now, we've been told, we've been taught, we've been shown how to be a particular way in our lives. And in that space, we've lost part of who we've always wanted to be. So I use manhood as an acronym. And this will get a great deal more unpacked in the lecture when you watch it. And I encourage you to watch it. I encourage you to watch it, not because it's about me or me teaching, because it can, if you allow it to, play a significant role in your life to reframe, redetermine how you approach yourself. When we talk about man, we think about the word adult. We associate the word man with adult. When we say the word boy, we think child. As a man, you're an adult. You have accumulated a multitude of experiences that have shaped who you are today. How you have sex, how you, again, not the technique, how you relate to people, how you give and receive love. All of that is predicated upon the experiences that you've had as a young person, as a child, as a boy. There are 7 key developmental stages. The Man and Sex lecture touches on one key stage fairly early on. And you begin to understand how these experiences and the interpretation of these experiences, what you made them mean, have shaped your life as an adult. Who you're attracted to, the things that you're interested in, how you deal with difficulty and pain and challenge, how you deal with adversity. All of that. Let me give you an example. If you were beaten as a child, raise your hand. Not raise your hand, sorry. Put a number 1 in the chat box. If you were beaten as a child, put a number 1 in the chat box. If you experienced physical abuse as a child, put number 1 in the chat box. If you experienced emotional abuse as a child by one of your primary caregivers or an extended member of your family or a teacher, someone, put a number 2 in the chat box. And if you already put a number 1, you can put a number 2 again, that's fine. These experiences, as many of you putting number 1s and 2s in here, these experiences that you've had have shaped who you are as an adult. They either bring you towards love or they retract you. And there's this underlying sense of fear that's permeating your physiology and your psychology. If you were beaten, I was beaten as a kid. I grew up in a violent, volatile family. If you were beaten as a child by your father and or mother or someone else, you'll move through the world with trepidation. You'll be more cautious. You won't trust as much. And if you're not trusting, you're not open. You're not showing yourself because there's a fear there that's stopping you from doing that. And that's become a habit. And so much so that you don't even recognize it anymore. You didn't even know that it's a habit. It's just part of your norm. It's part of who you are. Now, what if you come into the world and you come into your adult relationships and you hide yourself because you don't trust people in your lives? What do you think? And just put some thoughts down here in the chat box. What do you think that does to the quality of your relationships? Do you think it keeps them more closed or more open? Do you think the woman in your life, the feminine in your life, is going to trust you? You think she's going to feel safe with you, in front of you? Prevents deep connection. She's going to feel edgy. She's going to feel like she's walking on eggshells. Whether you're aggressive or abusive yourself, or whether you're just withdrawn or a combination of both. She's going to hold back. You're going to then get upset. Why isn't she giving the fullness of you? Your old stuff, your childhood wounds are going to be triggered unconsciously. They're going to play out through your actions and the way you treat each other. And you're having very similar arguments or fights with your close friends, with previous and past relationships. There's a pattern there. Their stuff is activated because they've got wounds as well. And so they behave from a reactive place because it's all they know. We go back to what's familiar, particularly when we feel that we're in danger. When the amygdala, the pituitary gland, and the adrenals are operating, the hypothalamus is operating in a space of fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, we will revert back to what's comfortable, what we know. May not be the best choice for us, but it's what we know. It's familiar. Familiarity is safe. And you just keep going round and round in circles. Same shit, same pattern, different haircut, different person, different face. So the opportunity we have is to look to our past, not to replay it and feel sorry for ourselves, but to look to our past to learn and grow, to make new decisions that give us a new outcome or the potential of that. Because if you remain stuck in the cycle of the past, the present's just the past repeating itself. You're not getting anything new. You're recycling thoughts. You're recycling self. It's as simple as that. What does that mean? It means that we have 50 to 70,000 thoughts a day. 95% of them are the same thoughts as yesterday. Think about that. Most of them are unconscious. And it's the unconscious self that's driving your behavior. So if you have fear that you haven't tapped into, if you have pain that you haven't dealt with, if you have wounds, regrets, if you've been neglected, if you carry shame, if you carry and harbor anger and aggression and fucking rage and you haven't let that shit go and you haven't felt those unfelt feelings, because that's part of it. It's not just cognitive. It's not just rewriting and reframing the cognitive story. It's can you feel those unfelt feelings that needed to be felt at the time of the infliction of the trauma that you felt, that you experienced? And let's talk about trauma for a moment. Big T trauma, little t trauma. Big T trauma, something more overt and obvious. Getting beaten, emotional abuse, being locked in a cellar, sexual abuse. Shit like that. Little t trauma is a little more subtle. It's perpetual. It wears you down. It's like, you come home, you're all excited. You go, Dad, I got a B. I got a B plus. Your dad looks and says, oh, that's okay. Why didn't you get an A? You didn't think much of it at the time. A little bit deflated. You didn't feel too good. You didn't feel too strong. But thought, okay, I'll try and get a B next time. Or I'll try and get an A next time. Come back. Oh, Dad, I got an A minus. And Dad's like, why didn't you get an A plus? Always just indifferent about it. I'm giving you an example, right? It can be that level of subtlety. Never good enough. You're always trying to fill a void. And then as an adult, what do? You're chasing approval. You're seeking validation unconsciously in everything you do. How you look, how you perform at work, your accolades, your achievements, your goal orientation. Nothing's ever enough for you. And if nothing's ever enough for you, the people that you're with, your children, your family, your friends, your wife, your partner, your boyfriend, whatever the fuck it is, it doesn't matter. They're never enough for you. And they're going to feel that from you. They're going to feel that from you because you're not enough for yourself, because you're still hanging on to what was. Put a number 1 in the chat box if you're good at celebrating yourself. Didn't expect many. Don't expect many. There's a few. Good. Great. That's healthy. Because we have to celebrate ourselves. We have to be able to feel ourselves, trust ourselves. And we have to stop seeking that validation and that expression of I'm enough, I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, I'm powerful enough, strong enough, I'm able enough from others. Because what happens is if you keep seeking it outside of yourself, you're going to continue to feel very empty. So the lecture, the last few days, is about our connection to our parents, about our childhood. Manhood is an acronym. Mum, attachment theory, neglect, hatred, orgasm, opportunity, dad. I unpack all of this in the lecture, so watch that. I've given you some foundations. I want to get into some Q&A. That's what I'd really like to do. So what that looks like is I don't think I can make you a host because that function is not available at the moment. That's fine. If you have questions, I want you to put them in the chat. I was going to bring you on, but that's not a function we have available at the moment, so we'll drop that. If you've got questions, I want you to put them in the chat box, and I'm going to get to as many as I can. So let's keep this. Yeah, I can unmute people. That's actually a good idea. So can you raise your virtual hand? Let's do that. Raise your virtual hand if you've got a question. Good. And then keep raising your virtual hand. I'm going to unmute you, and at least that way we can, of course, because you're already, that way we can start bringing those questions in. So Aviram, I'm going to start with you. I'm going to unmute you.
Hey.
Hey, brother.
Hey, brother. So you were talking about getting into those pains from childhood, and I know that's something that's really strong for me right now. I know that a lot of my conditionings, a lot of the things that I'm dealing, a lot of the reasons that I finished my last relationship is childhood traumas, both from mom and dad. Okay, I had an overly abusive mother and an emotionally absent father, and so I have both of these energies in my life, and I just wanted some tips or practices, or how can I get deeper into this? How can I relive my childhood in a way that won't hurt me now, if that's even possible?
Sure, it is possible, and it's not, right? So I'll put it this way. So it's a great question. We have to move through some level of pain. We have to experience, in part, the unfelt feelings, and that is going to be painful. Doing that alone or in loneliness is not healthy. Doing that in a support group, whether it's a support group like this, working with a therapist, a coach, a counselor, a somatic healer, that's going to be very important. Working through these processes on your own in solitude, that's different to isolation and loneliness. Solitude is a choice to be in your own space because you back yourself, you trust yourself, you see yourself, you know there's a benefit in doing that. Loneliness comes from victimhood mentality, comes from apathy for self, comes from shame and pain, comes from embarrassment. That's not what we want. So working through these issues, bringing them to the surface, understanding them for you is going to be very helpful. Now, not projecting them on your parents, because what most people want is we want our perpetrators or the people that hurt us or cause pain in our lives to take that pain away. The reality is this: they either can't, they don't want to, or they won't, or they're not able to. So we can't put that responsibility in their hands. Otherwise, we disempower ourselves. We have to empower ourselves and take responsibility and ownership, and that's a core tenet of masculinity. We have to take responsibility and ownership of our own feelings, irrespective of whether or not we weren't at the infliction point of that. We're perpetuating it. That's the truth of it. Our brain, our minds, our psychology, our bodies are perpetuating it until we choose not to. So, some tips. Work with someone. Be seen and witnessed. Here's a process for you that you can do. Write a letter to your mother and your father. A fuck you letter to your mother and your father. I mean, write everything you want to say in this letter. Everything. Right? Everything. And then, after you've written this letter, I want you to burn the letter. Tear it up, burn it, bring it to the winds, put it in water, bring it to the elements. Burning is good. Transmutation is good. That's a process that helps release some feelings that aren't projected to your parents. Because what's going to happen is if you come at your parents with a great deal of aggression and you're charged, the chances are they're not going to be able to receive the message of your pain and your hurt and your shame. Their body is going to reactively go into defense. And all they're going to witness is the pain that they're feeling and the shame that they're feeling. They're going to want to protect that in whatever their coping strategy is. This can't be about your parents fixing you or helping you because you're not broken. And it can't be about them taking away your pain. You've got to do it yourself. And it's a process. It's not a one and done thing. Somatic work is important. Releasing and moving our pain through our bodies at a cellular level and through the mind is very important. So that's a starting point for you, and know that it's a process. for all of us, for all of you. You unpack one layer, another layer presents itself, but that's growth, that's expansion. That means to be a man, that's what it means to be human. It's as simple as that. Does that help?
Yeah, a lot. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, brother. I'm going to choose, we'll go, and also, when you're asking your question, get to the core of your question, get to the heart of your question, just so we can get as many men as we can in. There's quite a few hands raised. And I say that, if I need more information, I'll ask you. Don't worry about that. William.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hello. Yes.
Okay. I see some pattern that's continuing to play out in my life, just like you said. I experienced some abuse from my father at a young age. I got to the point that I had mentally blocked it out, and I had convinced myself it wasn't real, even though I had all these symptoms. And ultimately, I wasn't showing up for myself even. I felt like nobody showed up for me, and I didn't show up for myself. And I got into this pattern in relationships of being such a giver. I just didn't feel complete, and I didn't feel whole. And I felt like if I loved this other person enough, if I supported them enough, that they would have to do that back to me. And then I would feel that love, validation, and support that I never got. I had a 5-year marriage that ended in a divorce. And then yesterday I had about a 1-year relationship that just ended in a separation and uncoupling. And I feel like I've grown to the point that in this moment, I feel like, okay, I'm taking time in solitude, not seclusion, but with myself to be, stand in that completion and wholeness to break that pattern. I've played it out so many times, and I've reinforced the pattern so many times that I don't know. I guess I'm looking to hear something of some actionable steps that I can take to not repeat it.
Okay. So the number one we need to do whenever we have a father wound, which it's not a formal psychological term. Let's understand that first and foremost. But it is a very real thing. And the father wound essentially represents not being seen, not being witnessed, not being accepted, not being appreciated, not being respected, needing and seeking validation, seeking approval from the father figure, the masculine in our lives. There's a disconnect between our own sense of manhood or masculinity or humanness and our worthiness, right? And so whenever we're seeking that external approval, it's very, very important that we go within first. So what does an actionable step look like? For you, place focus on structure and routine in your life, whether it's setting a very, not a regimented or strict, but a structured morning and evening routine. Taking steed and taking check of these are the areas, doing a life analysis, saying these are the areas of my life. I have 9 areas of life that I use. You can use 4 or 5. It doesn't really matter. There's so many different models of areas of life. Say, these are the areas of life that I really want to improve. How can I take responsibility on improving this area? So one of them could be, I'm not very good at expressing my emotions. I'm not very good at being real and vulnerable with the people that I love and care for. So I need to go into practicing vulnerability. I'm going to take responsibility for that. My physical body, I let my physical body go. I don't exercise, I don't train, I lack that discipline, I lack that structure, I don't feel I have confidence in my body. I've got to take responsibility for that. I'm starting 20 minutes every day for 1 month, I'm going to just go for a walk. As simple as that. Whatever it is in the area of your life that you feel needs to elevate, start to place focus on that, but also recognize the areas of your life where you are proficient, where you do rate yourself, where you do feel confident. But it's got to be your responsibility. So creating structure and routine in your life is very helpful for bringing back the validation and the approval and the confidence into yourself. Doing things that quote unquote scare you, things that are challenging. Challenge is a very good way for men specifically to gain confidence, because when you're more confident, and not a false sense of confidence, not a false bravado or an arrogance, but when you're confident in your own self, you don't need the approval and validation from others. So you don't have to project all this needy, desperate love on others, hoping that they're going to love you back. That's going to be empty after a while anyway, because they can't sustain that. It's not realistic and fair to place that expectation and that power in someone else's hands. It's too much for them. Do some martial arts. Learn about your body. Learn how you get challenged. Place yourself in situations that feel a little scary. Not only is that very good hormonally for you, and it's very good for increasing the health of your blood-brain barrier, for example, as well, and the connection with your vagus nerve to your brain, and like physiologically, it's very healthy for you. Have cold plunges. That shit can be scary. Like, it can be as simple as that. Have cold showers every day. Start building and cultivating confidence in your life. You want a new job that you want to apply to, but you're too scared because you don't think you're going to get it. Apply to it. You got that business, that side hustle that you want, but you're not doing it because you think you're going to fail. Fuck failure. Do it and fail anyway. Failure is feedback. Fail fast, fail often, and learn. Do these things that really help you. Be more confident. Does that help, William? Cool.
Yes, very much. Thank you.
Thank you, brother. Oscar.
Hey, brother. Thank
Hey,
you.
brother.
Good to see you.
You too.
So for me, what's coming up is in the beginning when you said about parents being violent or abusive, or for that, I didn't have that. I had a lot of love that I received, although I had a father that wasn't there.
Mm-hmm.
I did see my mom and my aunts and get into it a lot and fight. So I have this anger that easily arises within me. I'm doing all the practices, the cold showers, do my routine to try to, lessen that tension. But this year, my father's brother passed away, and a lot of things came up, a lot of truth that I didn't know about my father. I guess I kind of knew, but it was finally like validated with certain stories that were being told. And I think that really brought up a lot more anger. And so this anger that I have that just I project onto others, my loved ones, my children, I easily can get frustrated, which has been a lot better than in the past, of course. I just can't seem to find where the core of that comes from. And I don't know if that's from unknown stories or unknown information that I have from both sides, my mom and my dad. The fuck you letter, I'm gonna definitely do it and burn it. There's some deep conversation that needs to be had with my father. Like, he follows me on Instagram and he likes my things, and it kind of like triggers me because he's never been there. He's never met his grandchildren. He's never, wanted to, but he has the nerve to like send me messages and ask for things from me. And it's almost like he thinks just because we're friends on Instagram, it's all good in the hood, but it really ain't, and I really feel like this letter will help. But also, is that something that I need to still at some point communicate with my father, if that's where this anger comes from? And I've also gotten suggestions to just completely create a boundary and not speak to him at all and remove him from my life. So it's very conflicting and confusing all at once, because I've never had boundaries with myself. I've never, I'm learning that. It was never taught to me. And so it's almost like when we're going through these courses and people are saying, well, how do you feel? It's almost like I'm confused. Like, I don't know. I know how I want to feel and where I want to be, but it's almost like in the present moment, I still don't know how I feel, even though I'm a very emotional and loving person.
What did you need most from mum that you never got?
Yeah, I guess that's another one. My mom was a single mom and she was almost never there. So that also projects a lot in my past relationships, and has caused issues and insecurities within myself. I guess there's been a lot of loneliness in my life.
How many siblings do you have?
I'm the only child,
You're an only
technically.
child.
Yeah.
Okay. So I hear you, and I realize you have issues with dad, and there's definitely something there, having an absent father, and he's absent now for your children, for his grandchildren, and he's perpetuating that sense of absence that you're feeling. Okay, so you may need to set healthy boundaries. The underlying stuff here is with dad and with mum, and you do have a confusion, and you're stuck in confusion, right? And because you're stuck in confusion, you don't know which way to go. You don't know how to take action. So for me, when I hear you speak and I hear very similar stories to this, trauma release exercises are going to be very helpful for you. Working directly with a trauma therapist, not because you've had massive amounts of overt, very obvious trauma, because it's been a very subtle enmeshment. So what I mean by that is, did your mum ever remarry?
Yeah, and that's a pretty toxic relationship. That's a pretty
How old
interesting.
was she? How old were you when she remarried?
I was 12.
You were 12. Okay.
Yeah.
And at that time in your life, was that man that she married, was he a healthy man, healthy role model?
No,
No. Okay.
not from day one.
Okay. And so when did your parents divorce?
I was like 3 years old. Oh,
Okay.
hardly less. Probably. Actually, They separated at a year old. When I
Okay.
was a year old. Yeah.
Okay. So it's very young. Okay. So from a year to when your mum met this man and she married him, how many years were you just together with your mum?
Pretty much, yeah, till 12 years. I mean, she had some relationships here and there. Some lasted longer than others. So, I had to go through the moments.
Yeah, I hear you. So for me, what's coming up, that's something that you really need to deal with, that's going to help you, is the emotional entanglement and enmeshment that you had with mum, right? And that's a projection of her unmet needs from the masculine in her life projecting onto you. And that's one of the reasons why you're confused and you're overwhelmed. You've had too much responsibility from a very young age. And then at the age of 12, that was also disrupted. You had the absent father. So you had to make up your own rules. You had to make up your own ideas of what it means to be a man. Then you have this other guy that comes in. That wasn't a healthy relationship. You're thrown off. All of a sudden, the intimacy that you had with mum and the reliance she had on you now is projected onto this man that probably comes back to you at some point anyway as a 15, 16-year-old. So you're more confused and you've got a lot of fucking anger in you that you haven't released. Now, I know you've gone through processes, but let me tell you something, guys. Do you think fucking Richard Branson built his empire in a day? Do you think Rome was built in a day? No. Do you think you learned to walk in 1 minute? No. It took you time. You have to just keep processing. Now, what's going to help is that you can redirect your processing a little bit. So I really suggest that you work with someone deeply at a one-on-one level to help unpack some of these areas so you can direct the big emotions that are being suppressed in that way. Then you're going to start creating space and freedom in your body and your mind. Then the way you make decisions and the way you set boundaries are going to be very different. I would actually say you probably need to set healthier boundaries with your mother quicker or first before with dad, because mum's more in your life. And there's wounds there there's wounds there that are tough to deal with because of the connection and the enmeshment, the bond that you had. You can look up the word entanglement and enmeshment rather than me going into it, but that you had with mum that fucking hurts a great deal. And couple that with the absent father. But it's easier to project anger to another man than it is to a woman, particularly a woman that raised you and that did everything for you.
If I may share, with my mom, she's going through the awakening process, and I've been really kind of, like you said, have a lot of responsibility in guiding her and helping her, and she seeks for my help with everything that I'm learning.
It doesn't surprise me because that's what you're doing as a kid without even knowing.
And it frustrates me. She's been here, and like to see her where she's at and stuff, it just creates that.
She's a mom. Let me tell you something, guys. Let me be very fucking clear on something. There's a hierarchy in a parent-child relationship. Your parent's your fucking parent for a reason. They're meant to be your parents. You're not meant to fucking parent them. I went through that as well. It's not how it rolls. You keep doing that, you're going to keep hating on yourself. And you're going to be very confused. and you're going to and you're just going to be perpetually angry and frustrated and agitated. And guess what? It's called leaking. It's just going to leak out onto those that you love, because there's part of us, the ego self, that doesn't want to bring that within ourselves and take responsibility for it, because it's difficult, it's tough, and it's easy to blame someone else. The kids are being naughty. The wife doesn't understand me. My mum's being fucking nasty, whatever it is. And so you've got to work with that shit that's inside. And I know you're doing that. And you've also got to, this is what I said to you, like, how many people recognize themselves? Like, you've got to recognize yourself. You've got to recognize the work that you're doing, be grateful for the effort that you're putting into life, and also realize that it's a process. It's not a one and done. And you're on your path. And if you acknowledge the impact that you're making on your life, and if you acknowledge the growth that you've had, you'll be given the opportunity to continue to grow. So life is like a video game. The video game is, you know, Super Mario Brothers? You remember Bowser? The big bad guy is usually like a form of Bowser or Bowser's nephew or some other fucking Bowser replica at the end of every level. When you beat Big Bowser, and then you go to the next level, because the video game has recognized and acknowledged that you've passed this stage, this level, and now you can go to level 2. And now in level 2, there's new adventures, there's new superpowers, there's new villains, there's bigger challenges, but you're equipped for it because you've had the practice and the structure of level 1. But the point is, what ties that is that the video game and you acknowledge, it's like you do your big bow, you go, yes, 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 that's an acknowledgement. It's like, yep, I'm ready for the next level now. But if you don't do that, you're just going to be stuck in limbo, and you're just going to keep cycling projection over and over again. It becomes a negative feedback loop, and you keep blaming everyone else but you. And you think, but I'm doing the work. And you are, but you're not acknowledging it. And you're also you're misdirecting a little bit, but that's okay. That's what we're here to learn from each other, right? I don't always get it right. I've got multiple coaches in my life. I've got multiple people that I look to. I don't know it all. No fucking way. How's that land for you, Oscar?
Oh no, thank you. That helps so much. I feel like I have guidance and somewhere to go now to lessen that confusion. But it makes so much sense. I appreciate it, bro. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, brother. Work with the mum. Focus on the mum stuff more. This is my intuitive feeling. Focus on the mum stuff more, and my professional feeling. And the dad stuff you'll get to, but the mum stuff's going to unlock something that you'll be able to get to with dad. But don't even think too many steps ahead. Right now, one step, one small step at a time. That's all you need. One small step, okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Paul.
Hey.
Hello.
Thanks, Stefanos. Good to see you, brother.
You too.
So, raised in a home devoid of emotion, completely vacant. And when emotions were being expressed by others, mine were dismissed. That came with some physical abuse and lots of psychological abuse as well, which I've carried through, obviously, into my marriage. And now we're on 13 years of marriage and 8 years of a fucking cycle of lash out, suppress, lash out, suppress, lash out, suppress. Been doing this kind of work now for 3 years. And it is shamed. This kind of, me doing this kind of work is actually being used as a further weapon to.
By whom?
By my wife.
Why are you with her?
Figuring that out.
Okay.
Trying to figure that out.
The longer you, and I'm not saying stay with her or don't stay with her. I'm not insinuating that. I'm asking, why are you with someone that's shaming you? Because what's happening is you have a release of, maybe you're outlashing or outbursting to her, then you repress. You're just caught in this pattern, in this cycle. But you don't need me to tell you what to do. You know exactly what you need to do. What do you think you really need to do? What action do you really think you need to take? Let's just be honest. Just throw it out there. Stop hiding.
I need to have a confrontational conversation. I need to lean in and own my shit, and not feel ashamed for doing the work. And
you're not allowing someone else to shame you for something that you're interested in. Number one,
yeah,
your voice was minimized as a kid, right? You're just repeating that pattern with your wife now. Let me tell you something very quickly about relationships. Our adult relationships are reflections of what we did and did not receive from our primary caregivers, both consciously and unconsciously. And we are replicating those relationships in our lives, in our adult lives, so that we can heal that part of ourselves that doesn't feel whole, that feels fractured, that feels broken, that isn't, but it feels that way, so we can move into wholeness and move into growth and expansion. Your wife, your relationship with your wife is your relationship with probably your mother and your father at some level. And you allowing this to happen and continue to happen will only continue to happen. If you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. There's nothing profound here. There's no fucking 28-step cyclical process I'm going to give you that's going to help. You know exactly what you need to do. And it's actually beyond that. It's taking power of you and breaking that pattern of outbursts. You feel good for a moment because, oh yeah, I fucking got into my power. I told her, I showed her. But then you feel guilt and shame for that. Just like when you spoke when you were a kid, you felt guilt and shame. It's just a cycle. It's just familiar. And we play out familiar patterns because familiarity feels safe. But you're better than that and you're more than that, but you got to see that, not me. Because I don't live your life 24/7. And if you keep walking on eggshells, you're just going to get more eggshells. So, whilst your wife is safe because it reminds you of your parents, until you heal that core wound, all that's going to happen is you're just going to be stuck in the same cycle. And people can tell you, do this work, have this anger release, go there, and it's just going to be Band-Aid solutions. It's all it's going to be. Just Band-Aid solutions.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. I know sometimes, that the truth sometimes hurts, and I get that. I've been there. There's nowhere any of you have gone that I haven't gone. That's why I do what I do, and that's why I'm able to move through stuff very quickly. But you know what? For many years I didn't. I was stuck in my stuff. Just stuck in my stuff and wanted someone else to take the pain away. And I numbed it with pornography, with prostitution, with drugs, with alcohol, with achievements, with manipulations, with all of it. Quick fix, short-term gratification to forget. You got to remember who you are.
A lot of what it is too is we've got 3 girls and she holds a lot of sway over them, a lot of control over them. They follow her blindly almost. And that's my biggest fear is that.
That's because you've minimized your voice over the years.
Yeah. And she'll use it to further isolate me and my relationship with my girls.
Yeah, look, and that's a fear, and that's a projected fear, and it's a quasi-actual fear. And that's also an opportunity for you to step into your power and start speaking into your voice. Your wife's a blessing. She's a blessing because she's giving you an opportunity to speak in your voice. You're just stuck in an old cycle of when you were a kid, projecting mum and dad onto her. And you haven't broken that cycle yet. But your wife's a blessing. She's giving you, and she wants you to step into your power because she wants to be led. Her feminine wants to be led. Let me ask you something. What's this? What's he, him mean? What's that mean?
Identification around gender.
What is it? Tell me what it means. Or what does it mean? That means you're not a male? You don't identify as a male?
I do identify as a male, and I want people to know that they can identify me as such.
Okay. So part of being male is masculinity, part of it. So masculinity is a cultural construct and a biological construct. First, it's a biological evolutionary construct. I'm not going to go into today because we don't have time for that, and it's another lecture, so to speak, or another workshop. But it's important. It's interesting that you have he, him there. I want you to step into your masculinity. I want you to identify for you what masculinity means, what maleness means, and I want you to step into it. Part of it is being in your power and being in your ownership. Your woman wants that. She wants you to lead and she wants to be led. That doesn't mean she's weak and meek and passive. She wants to be able to trust you and she wants you in your structure. I want you to live up to he, him. And you can.
Boom. Thank you, Stefanos.
You're welcome, brother.
That was beautiful.
Thank you. Vince.
Thanks, brother. A lot of questions were answered in the previous conversations. One question I want to get out, books were recommended by some other people, asked by, from you, like recommendations, if you could list it out after. My question now Very similar to Paul, definitely. But I have, you know, in my relationship, we've separated. We live together, have separate rooms. Not over. She makes that clear. I can feel her openness still.
Why are you there? Why you live there? Is it an economic choice? Is it a financial choice?
Right now, yes, in part, not totally.
What do you mean in part?
In part that the last year for me was a tremendous psychological breakdown. Business partnership fell apart, lost tremendous amounts of money, went into debt. All good things now because I've been rebuilding myself and I'm just on a whole new purpose and path. I feel more aligned with who I am, who I always was.
The truth is, sorry to interrupt you. I'm not so sorry.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
no, don't apologize for that. You're not
staying there for financial reasons. You're staying there in hope.
Partly that, but I think what I've come to realize is I can't deny the exceptional amount of growth that's coming through the partnership. I've witnessed a lot of my own. Right. Well, yeah, exactly. That's been broken down in the last few months.
Look, I'm all for. I hear you, man. So I had one of the biggest catalysts for my own growth was a breakup many years ago, and we lived together for like 6 months after we broke up. We never really broke up, and I inflicted a lot of trauma onto her. So we were doing a lot of healing. It was an amazing experience, and I wouldn't change it for the world. Like, it wasn't one of those, oh, you've inflicted trauma onto me, I'm going to cut this relationship, we go our separate ways. We lived together, reliving a lot of that trauma and choosing to be different and behave different. So there's value in all that. But what I'm feeling from where you're at is that part of you that's hanging on to hope. And I get that there's growth there, right? I get that. But it's also a little bit of a glutton for punishment. And you got to check in with that part of you that's hanging on. And just really have a conversation with that part of you and say, is this really healthy for us right now? Because I think that's the part that's letting you down. That's the part that's hurting you. That's the part that's maybe confusing you. That's the part that's getting you to behave in different ways based on the agenda of, I want her to see me. I still want to, part of me still wants to be with her. And part of you, I'm sure, is like, no, I'm done. But that part that's holding on is going to keep pulling you back into behavior that is a behavior you're trying to break, a pattern that you're trying to move on from. And it's like a heroin addict that's trying to quit heroin doesn't set up camp in a heroin house, in a smack house. And so you've got to decide. I'm going to decide that for you. You've got to decide that. Whether it's, am I really here? The driving force, is it really because I'm hoping that something changes?
I'm cool with it if it doesn't. And at the same time, it isn't practical for me to like try and rebuild everything, my life, my living situation. I moved out of state already. And like that practicality is there. So like I have a lot of responsibility right now, running my own groups and leading a lot of people, training a lot of people. This particular area of my life is just the one thing that's like still there's like an uncertainty there, the relationship side of things.
Why wouldn't you be able to create space and go live in a small unit somewhere that you're paying very little for and financially, or a friend or something? If you're so established in the area that you're at, why couldn't you reach out and say, look, for a few months, I need some space. Would you be willing to do that? Like, reach out to people, put it out there, literally just be open to it, go to forums, whatever. Why isn't that a possibility?
It is a possibility. Things aren't necessarily volatile or anything here, like we're kind of doing
it's not about volatility.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think you're not getting here?
What I think I'm not getting. Well, it's definitely the love and affinity has dissipated.
What do you think you're not getting from what I'm telling you, what I'm expressing to you?
To take the action to like move and uproot myself, and
you're minimizing yourself. You're coming from there's a part of you that's coming from a wounded place that's still a very strong part, and it's creating reasons and excuses or whatever you want to call it.
I feel that.
Reasons to stay there. And part of that is that hope, right? Part of that is that you don't think you're good enough. Part of that is self-worth. I'm not able enough. I'm not capable enough to find a new place. create my space. I'm not safe. I don't feel safe enough to be my own. Like I look to her for guidance, whatever it may be. Am I going to get another love again? I should just keep trying with it. They're amicable. It's a good foundation. Whatever stories you're telling yourself.
I really want to rebuild I'm just rebuilding my income. You know, finally got some good steady income coming in, and then I want to get to a little bit more secure place
so
where I have that. Yeah.
Okay, so then you know what you need to do. Can you commit to that? Can you commit to
I have already.
Okay, so what's the time frame on that?
By the end of the year. You know,
okay, so it's about 3 months away.
Where I need to be.
4 months away.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, so that structure, it's important. The domain of time and space and structure is the domain of the masculine. So if you're structured around that, if you're structured around that, and you are clear on that, then what I suggest is lean in to the space that you're in and get as much as you can from that over the next few months, and with a commitment to get out of there and move and learn and grow as you can. But the point is, be decisive, make a decision and stick to it. Because if you don't, you're just going to be playing that victim out. You're going to be playing that weakness out, that I'm not enough, or I need other people to make decisions for me. You're not going to be stable in your own structure. You're not going to be decisive. So practice decisiveness. It's going to be very important for you.
Thank you, brother.
You're welcome. I want to get one more in, and a quick. So, Sean.
Yeah, hello. Thank you, Stefanos. Quick, thank you for everything relating to a lot of this stuff. Raised with a emotionally absent, alcoholic, workaholic, verbally abusive, rageaholic father, mother who's defined by the doctors as having BPD and a narcissist. What I've found as I've grown older, I can have a very difficult time distinguishing lust from healthy attraction and viewing women not just as an object of my desire, but as a whole picture. And I'm just really working on getting to the root of that this last year to have a healthier scenario.
Okay. So here's my immediate guidance to you is I want you to practice, and it's up to you whether you do this or not, but I want you to practice a no feminine diet. What that means is I don't want you to date. I don't want no pornography. Mix with as few women as possible. No masturbation. Okay, no sex. No women. I want you to do that if you can, for a minimum, if you can, of 6 months. If you can. If that feels way too overwhelming and too much, start with 3 months. That means no sneaky YouTube videos of women in bikinis in Brazil and Rio de Janeiro. That means really cut all that out. Now, why am I saying that? Because it's going to create space, distance from what you're accustomed to. It's going to be different from you. That's right. No looking at those Instagram models either. None of that. In that space, some of these answers that you seek, you shall find. That's your next step, is committing to a no feminine diet for a period of whatever you feel is comfortably uncomfortable or uncomfortably comfortable, and then reevaluating at that time. And if you say, I'm going to do 6 months, after that, move in 3 months blocks. And I suggest if you can do this for at least 12 months, you're going to have some big fucking realizations.
Thank you. I've started to do about 4 out of those 6, but the sneaky YouTube bikini Brazil, that's still got me.
Cool. And obviously, there's some reflection that you do with that. Spend time with yourself. Be kind to yourself. Nurture your body. Work on your physicality. Work on your spirituality. Reflect. Journal. Be deliberate in your integration practices as well. It's a lot more difficult to do if you're in a relationship. Someone asked here, can I do this in your partnership with a woman? I mean, if you're looking at pornography and you're distracted and all of that, look into why you're doing that. You can cut that out. But being in a partnership, you can't really do this. It's very difficult. It doesn't really work.
I'm similar to Vince's relationship. I just moved out and sold our house. So I have a child with this woman, but yeah.
That's fine. Of course, that's minimal contact with her in terms of seeing your child and all of that. It's fine. Of course. I'm not saying go to a hut in the mountains, although you could, and be away from people altogether, but minimize that contact, particularly sex, masturbation, ejaculation, pornography, like that. Even spend minimal time with female friends, minimal. And if you've got close female friends, you say, look, I'm doing this thing. I love you. I care for you. I just need my space at the moment. It's got nothing to do with you. It's all to do with me. And this is part of the process.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you. Man, thank you so much. Thank you for being here. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for putting your time in, your energy, being here virtually, taking time out of your day, your family, your commitments. Remember, growth is an ongoing process. It doesn't start and stop like that, but it does begin and end with you. That is true. So go deep into yourself, keep exploring, keep experiencing, keep expressing, and surround yourself with men that see you, that witness you, where you're not alone, where you can be yourself, where without harsh judgment, with compassion, where all of you can be welcomed. That's very important. Peace out, brothers. Thank you so much.
Hey, Stefanos, before you go, every session, usually Kevin's here to do this, but we always give love to the speaker. So everybody unmute yourselves and let's do that. Let's give Stefanos some love.
Thank you.
Stefanos,
Thank you so much,
bring yourself
Stefanos.
into us.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Stefanos, big love, bro.
Thank you so much.
All the
guys.
way to
Thanks,
Convergence.
Yes.